Hello, 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 and welcome to this week's edition of the Cheapseats. We're doing something slightly different this week, so you're going to have to just watch out on the One World Sports Radio platform. I'm going to close AB a little here because I'm going to ask you to subscribe and also click that notification bell, because what we're trying to do is create small bite-sized videos that you can do on a weekly basis, that on a couple of days, so that you can then consume our content a lot quicker, and it's a little bit shorter, so you can have a little bit of a debate, because there'll be lots left on the cutting room floor. But yeah, that's what we're going to try to do. So please do come through and support, like, subscribe, everything to our YouTube channel. I've got AB and I've got Wahid here. The topic for this week, because it is 7 days before the 1st of September, which means that it's the final week of the transfer window. So what do the teams need in this last week? What piece of business do they need to do going into the last week? And that's what we're going to be discussing. So this show will be the top four. So, AB, Wahid, how are you guys doing?
You can go, Wahid.
Either one of you guys, I'll start with AB.
No, yeah, I'm okay. This last weekend as a United fan was not good, guys. It was not good. It was not good to watch. It was not good. 90 minutes. I was not happy. So I'm in a bad place. Also, FPL, I took a hit, but more on that later. Yeah, I'm not in a good place with football.
You and I took the same hit, and we'll talk about it in our FPL show. Heath, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. I'm actually very impressed with United this weekend. It's called expectation management. In the first 6 months of marriage, I've learned a lot about expectation management, and I feel like the team did well with expectation management this week. It's like, don't set the bar too high, because you will be disappointed. So after a really good first week, what they did was they managed those expectations. They're like, this is not the level that we're going to put out for 38 games. Please be aware.
Well, who would have thought that United would take lessons from Wahid and his new marriage? It's a beautiful thing. So expectation management is key. We'll talk about team expectation management later on. Gents, this week we're going to talk about the top four, last season's top four, and what they need in the last week of the window. We're going to start with the champions, that being Manchester City. So from a Man City perspective, gents, what is it do they need? Is it Harry Kane and 150 million, or are they just fine? AB.
No, they need Kane. They need Kane. They want Kane. They've got to sign him. We saw him come on for a little bit of a cameo on the weekend. He didn't do badly. He didn't score that one opportunity he had. Obviously, he's rusty. But the thing is, right now you've got a player who wants to leave, but at the same time, it's a player who has no power at all. Daniel Levy holds all the power. City have all the money in the world. We know this. If they don't have enough revenue, they'll just make some more. It's this brilliant machine that they can continually do. So just sign him, pay the money. You'll get your star striker, and then next season you don't need to sign a striker. You know,
so the way I see it is that Kane gives them that focal point. It gives them that additional strategy in games where they struggle to break down teams. I think if they watch the Chelsea game against Arsenal, they could, yes, Kane's not as bustly as Romelu, but the ability for your midfielders to look up and throw it into someone up there could be something that could change from Pep tactics. But with Pep, he might not want Kane.
I was about to say, like, Pep isn't the type of manager who's been screaming out for number 9. He really isn't. At Barcelona, he didn't work with Eto'o. He let him go. He got in Ibrahimovic and then didn't like what he saw. At Bayern, it was slightly different insofar as that he used his number 9 in Lewandowski, but he wasn't building his team around Lewandowski. It was a very important cog in a machine. Then he came to City, and I must be honest, the way he used Aguero was really weird. Aguero was not his main man. And Pep doesn't seem to care for number 9 the way some other managers do, and certainly the likes of us in the core do. So I'm not sure that Pep is as desperate for a number 9 centre forward as maybe his bosses are for their shiny new toy. I'm certain that if City were to go into the season without Harry Kane, I'm pretty certain they would be fine in finding a way to score goals. And that's where City are really dangerous. And you talk about City struggling to break teams down. I very much struggle to recall a day when they really struggled to break someone down. That's not what City are about. And if you look at last season, their top goal scorer being Gundogan, in an all-conquering season, it just goes to show that City don't need a focal point in their attack. They score goals from everywhere, from midfield, from defense, from the wings. All their players are goal scorers, and I think whether they're playing De Bruyne or Ferran Torres as a false 9, I think someone will score. As Riyad Mahrez comes on and invariably within 15 minutes of coming onto the field, he does something incredible. So I'm not sure that's what they need desperately. My pick for City in terms of what they need is that little tricky left back spot. And I'd like to pose the question to you: is that if you had to replace Ben Mendy or Alexander Zinchenko with someone as good as Luke Shaw, or with someone even like a Ben Chilwell or Marcus Alonso, how much better do you think City would be, both going forward and defensively? They're not very well equipped in that position. On the other side, they do have Kyle Walker and João Cancelo, who are both excellent footballers. And yeah, Cancelo can play on the left-hand side now as well, but he's not naturally a left-sided defender. If you had to put Luke Shaw into the City team, they'd win the Champions League. Like that's how much of a difference I think Luke Shaw would make in this team.
Big call for Luke Shaw. I wrote down left back, so I'm with you there. They just need to find that cover, because I think Zinchenko's the guy for Pep. We know why, yeah, and I think Zinchenko's more of a midfielder. But I do think that they need somebody they need to ship out Mendy and get someone who can actually.
You talk about options though, and like who on the market would be available for them to do that kind of business
right now,
to get the type or the caliber of player that City would want in their team. And I was thinking about it. I'm sort of struggling to think of a name that they could go onto the market and maybe sign. Luca Digne would be maybe an interesting one where if they could prize him away from Everton.
That's a good one. That's a very good call. And that's the type of stuff that you can. Yeah, they'll have to pay like bucket loads, but yeah, it makes sense.
City are all about paying 50 million for fullbacks. They've done it 100 times before. They will do it again. And 50 million on a fullback might make Everton consider letting someone like Luca Digne go. And that's the type of player Pep might like to work with. He's very skillful, technically adept, probably able to learn Pep's philosophy quite easily.
Okay, let's move on to the next team. It's Team Manage Expectations, also known as Manchester United. And while I do that, I bring Dean in. We'll bring him into the next team. Wahid, Manchester United are in need. I don't know if it's a glaring need, but I've been hearing defensive midfielder. Is it true? And is that the only thing that you need?
Look, yeah, I think if you watch the game this weekend, I think we do definitely need a defensive midfielder. I don't think any of the players we currently have the skill set of an out-and-out defensive midfielder. I think all of them have attributes that help them defensively. Matic is an out-and-out defensive midfielder, but he's 100 now, and he's on his way out. So yeah, what we need is a 24-year-old Nemanja Matic. I think all the other players who are playing in those positions have attributes that help them in that position, but are not completely adept at playing as the only man. And I think that if United are going to move forward, we need to stop insisting on playing a double pivot in front of the defense. I think that's probably what's holding the team back a little bit, is that the manager is not trusting any of those players to play as the only man for different reasons. Where Fred is a non-passing central midfielder, can you believe? McTominay probably doesn't have the positional discipline to play as the only defensive midfielder, and Matic is a bit old to play there. So he's now sitting in a situation where he's trying to use them in tandem with each other to make sure that they're covering up for each other's deficiencies. And probably what you need is a player who's going to come in who doesn't have any of those deficiencies and play as the only defensive midfielder there, allowing Bruno to play as an 8.5, and probably Pogba to play as an 8.5, allowing Sancho, Rashford, and Greenwood or Cavani, whoever it is ahead of them, to wreak havoc. And that's probably what we need right now. Names, I think there's lots that come to mind. I mean, Declan Rice probably too expensive. So is Wilfred and Didi. I think those two would be the most obvious candidates to come into that midfield for us in terms of their skill set. But I'm going to throw another name out. Bissouma would be a lot cheaper than any of those players, and I wonder why none of the top 6 are currently linked with him. He would do a job in probably any one of the top 6.
Yeah, AB. With that need for a defensive midfielder, are there any other needs that Manchester United require? Where on the field, and what are the names?
So I wouldn't say, okay, so on the field, to answer your question directly, we need our players back. We gave Cavani an amazing, 6-week holiday for the man to go home and sort his head out and say goodbye to his family just for one more season. I'm hoping 2. But yeah, so we need him back. We need Varane and Sancho fit. We need Rashford to come back healthy again. So we need our greatest squad a little bit more fitter. Then also we need to take some of the dead wood and we need to sell. Matic and a guy like Phil Jones are costing the club £10 million a year just in wages. So as soon as you start getting rid of all this deadwood, then you can start buying these Bissoumas, these Rices, these Indeeds. It's been well documented that United cannot sign a single player again without selling, and United have struggled to sell. You can see that Herrera's going on loan to a club in Brazil with an option to buy, and they probably won't exercise the option because they'll realize that Andreas Pereira is shit. So we're probably going to be stuck with him for another season, but it is what it is. So we need to desperately sell. We need to go to Chelsea. We need to steal their juju. We need to come back. We need to throw the bones and do something just so
But AB, there's a glaring need in the squad. Can't you just then say, go get a Bissouma, go give Brighton 30 million and be like, look, dude, come over, because we need that midfield hard man. We need someone to seal the defense. And then you can figure out the rest. Don't register them as players and then they'll walk in this week or probably until the end of the month.
That makes sense, but the club isn't being run by football people either. It's being run by accountants, and accountants care about those numbers, guys.
Okay. But at some point you have to worry about the money as well. Also, you're going to end up in a situation where you like Barcelona, where you've got a wage bill that's enormous. So it's a balancing act. And I must be honest, at this point, the club has done good business. It's for once we cannot point the finger at them and say that you haven't done good business. We need to accept that they've played in front of empty stadiums for 2 seasons now, and there isn't a bottomless pit of money. What the problem is that you've got sellable assets like Jesse Lingard, who I swear if he was at Chelsea, he'd be fetching 40 million right now. So I don't understand United's inability to shift on players like that.
But that's why we're talking about this, because players like that are going to be shifted. Prices are going to drop because the only market in Europe that's viable right now is actually the English market. You're going to have to sell amongst each other in order to get players off the books. And to a certain extent, I think that's what all the clubs are waiting for. But moving on to that, and I'm going to ask Dean this question. Next team is Chelsea. Dean, we saw Romelu Lukaku come in. They literally spent all their transfer kitty this year on him. They've got all these other midfielders as well that they got last season. Is there any other place where this Chelsea team can strengthen, or are they looking for in this, or is it another Manchester United situation where they need to start getting rid of players?
Look, obviously Chelsea's midfield and strike force is up there with some of the best we're probably going to see in the Premier League. But I do think, and they are actively looking, because I saw today they're looking at Sevilla's Kunda, the guy that Spurs were also looking at, but then he wants Champions League football, so obviously didn't want to come to us. But I do think that central defense is probably an area they could look to strengthen. They're looking to shift on Zuma. So if you look at that centre backs, they've got Christensen and Rudiger who are doing the job, but Thiago Silva's getting a little bit old, so you're probably going to want to look for a little bit of a replacement there. Centre backs, that's probably the only area that I would say would would probably look at one area they could probably improve on immediately, because there are names available. If you have a look at that other side, the midfield, they've got Kovacic, they've got Kante, and they've got Jorginho. I mean, World Cup winner, Euro winner, and Kovacic is...
Put respect on Jorginho's name.
I don't really see, in terms of, if you have a look at United's problem in defence, if you look at the Chelsea game versus Arsenal, the way they moved that ball from back to front was way faster than what United could, Spurs could, probably anyone in the
any
league
team
could.
in the
United could between De Gea and Maguire, guys.
Yeah. So I don't see there in the normal midfield. I don't see there being an issue with Chelsea. But to be honest, I mean, that Chelsea team is looking. Look, it's been one game with Lukaku, and people are singing their praises like they've already won the league, which I think may be a little bit premature. But they've got good things coming. So
some of us wildcarded Lukaku, so like we gotta have to. Like he's a bully. Well, you disagree slightly with Dean about Chelsea's midfield. They did bench N'Golo Kante, so do they need someone in there?
Yeah. So my thing isn't about quality there; it's about depth. In the first week, we saw that Kante wasn't 100% ready to play yet. He was still coming back from a slight injury, and they had Jorginho and Kovacic as a double six pivot there. Behind those three, Billy Gilmore's gone on loan now. Loftus-Cheek has regressed a lot. There isn't much depth. So if you have one of those three injured, one of Jorginho, Kovacic, or Kante, you're actually struggling in terms of your depth, in terms of that system that Tuchel plays. He's playing a 3-4-3 variation. So he's playing with two in midfield, and those two have to be defensively minded, because Mount plays as one of the front three in actual fact. He doesn't play as one of the two in central midfield. So one of those midfielders gets injured, you're actually sitting with a problem. Two of those midfielders get injured, you're sitting with a massive problem. So I actually think that it's not a problem of quality. I get they've got it sorted there at the moment. I'm talking about in the event of an injury, in the event of the season getting long, in the event of Chelsea playing 60 games in the season. Do they have central midfield depth? And I'm tending towards thinking that if one of them get an injury, they're sitting with problems.
Yeah, look, I think it's a question of opportunities, because I think Tuchel has an issue, because I think he's got a lot of players, and it's 60 games. You need to spread the 60 games across everybody. And in that midfield three, I'm with you. They may need somebody, but one of those every game Chelsea will play, it's either one of Jorginho or Kante will be on the field. Kovacic obviously will either come in either when something happens. But I agree with you. They may need somebody. Do you go out and splurge money, or do you go get somebody from the under 18s or the under 20s or the reserve side to be like, hey, if there is, heaven forbid, 2 injuries in this thing, can you sit? Or they could possibly even drop Mason Mount. But that's an idea. I just don't get how teams, speaking about defensive midfielders, I don't get how teams bypassed Frank Onyeka, who was playing in Midtjylland. I just don't get it. Because I look at Brentford, and I'm like, this guy is Premier League quality, even after 2 games. But it is the market. Maybe scouts are looking in other places in Europe, and if you're a low league team, you need to go to Midtjylland to go find players. But that's an interesting thing to consider.
But I also saw I don't know if you guys have spoken about it, but I saw Camavinga's been put on the transfer for Rennes, so he's also an option that could be looked at.
But
and apparently 35 million euros.
Type of player.
Yeah, but
and
if you're looking
he's
at
midfield, he's not an offensive midfielder.
Yeah,
but he can still slot into a midfield if you need him to.
Yeah,
he works for Spurs. I will tell you that. He works for Spurs, and he works well. I'm not sure about Chelsea, because the way Chelsea are playing, they have those type of midfielders. Mason Mount's that guy who can do like box to box, but Pogba doesn't. He does do box to box. He more favored the one box than the other. But we'll talk about that on some other.
It's interesting. I was watching a video of Camavinga. He reminds me of Spurs Dembele. Very similar player, left-footed, very good with the ball at his feet, dribbling out from a deepish position, but not a defensive midfielder. If you're looking at Camavinga for defensive midfield position, he's very similar to the almost like a Fred type of player. I'm not saying that's his level. Okay, like look, he can pass a football straight, But it's like that type of player, yeah.
So, final team of this one is Liverpool, the former champions, looking to be champions again. I know you guys don't like them. I'm going to start with AB. I say they need a midfielder, AB, someone who can add a little bit more creativity. I know they've got Thiago, but someone else to kind of solidify that midfield. I don't like Oxlade-Chamberlain sitting there. I think he's great, but I think he's past his prime, even though he's like 26, which is weird. What do you say?
Well, I mean, okay, so they've strengthened well with Konate. They've got Virgil back. Apparently their fullbacks are half decent. They've got a great goalkeeper. They don't need a number 9 because they've got Jota and Firmino. So yeah, I mean, any winger who comes in there like Shaqiri, who came in a couple seasons ago, has to be moved on because they just won't play if Salah or Mane are fit, or even Jota. So yeah, the big gap for them was the midfield. The James Milners, the Jordan Hendersons. I disagree with Jordan Henderson being a midfielder who's world class if you look at the other players in Liverpool. But the problem is who's on the market in attacking midfielder areas or creative midfielders. There's not many. I mean, I literally can't. Camavinga, we've mentioned him, but
there is one guy. I think he is at Atletico. Saul Niguez. I think Saul from Atletico would be really good in the side.
Lots of guys are looking at him though.
There's also that okay at Lyon that Jurgs were looking at last year. Aura.
Oh, Hussein Aouar. Oh my word! If
he's
anybody
coming to Spurs, he's coming.
Yeah, but don't they need a striker, guys? Doesn't Liverpool, this whole false 9 thing not work anymore?
Guys, Liverpool wants Mbappe. That's who Klopp wants.
They're not getting him. Find someone else.
But they can't get him now. So do they save? I honestly think Liverpool are going to save this season.
Yeah.
And just go into next season and buy someone.
So a soccer club is going to go into a budget like normal people and save money for a player. Is that what you're telling me?
That's what I think is going to happen.
Oh, no, guys, we're not doing any transfers. We're saving money for that big Mbappe purchase next year. He might go to Real Madrid and we'll have like 120 million to spend. But yeah, that's what we're trying to do. Does that make sense?
Might not have money next year. That's the real thing. Like
next year, Mbappe will be free, and it will be about the club who can offer him the most wages. And I assure you, Liverpool will be about 10th in the list of clubs that can offer him lots of money.
So, are there any other strikers for this season that they can try and attract? Some out-and-out strikers, somebody who can... Because I love this whole Jota thing, false 9, the front 3 is interchangeable. It's not... I don't think it works for me. I don't know if Firmino's now struggling. Is there somebody they can be like, hey, can you come over? Or is the market dry? Because strikers are seemingly... can't be found.
Is this available?
Strikers are rare, though. Strikers are like trying to find alcohol in level 5 lockdown. You just can't find it, you know? You have to search far and wide. So from a strike, but we all know Klopp's way of playing. He doesn't have that out-and-out striker. He likes that front 3. So unless he considers an entire formation change, perhaps then they look at someone. But from a Harry Kane perspective, I would think, and just talking Harry Kane, I don't think he goes to Liverpool because of the formation they play and how he's probably the least fitted there. So you look at any other striker, I don't think he fits there. The problem with Liverpool is if Salah gets injured, then
what next? Yes,
and that's what I was going to say. So behind Salah, Mane, Jota, and Firmino, you only had Origi and Shaqiri. Shaqiri's gone now. There's a very good chance Origi's going by the time this window closes, which leaves you Minamino. That's all you have. So in the event, again, this brings us back to the Chelsea the Chelsea debate, where it's not about quality, it's about depth. Okay, look at United in that front line. If Sancho goes, you've got Greenwood, you've got Cavani, you've got Martial, you've got Rashford, you've even got Jesse now. There's a lot.
You've got Martial.
There's a lot of depth there. It's not okay. We talk about
use depth. Don't say depth.
Yeah. Do Liverpool have that? If there was an injury to Salah or Mane, do they have the quality of player? Look, Harvey Elliott could probably fill in one of those positions. So could Oxlade-Chamberlain, but they're not true forwards. They're not going to give you the output of a Salah or a Mane, and that's probably where Liverpool need to strengthen. Liverpool would probably be giving their high teeth for Mason Greenwood right now, to be honest. Someone who could play across that front three.
Do you consider a guy like an Ismail Assar out of Watford? I know Manchester United looked at him. They thought he was good enough to come in and add depth and come in the event that. But okay, the other problem is AFCON. You don't want more Africans in your side, and that's what Liverpool need to try and consider as well. But do you go look for those types of players?
Yes.
Even like, for instance, I'd even go take Sergio Canos and be like, look, dude, you're going to play behind these guys and you're going to play underneath them. You've got assists, you've got goals, and it can work. Or, yeah, I don't know. Or do you go and then be like, Todd Cantwell, come sit bench at Liverpool, will guarantee you some success?
Salah is a good name because you also look at the ages of Salah and Mane, and now you're planning succession. Not just are you planning for the current season in the event of injury, you're planning succession. They're both 29 and 30, and Star is a lot younger, and Star could be earmarked as your next Sadio Mane. So maybe next season, what you're doing is you're doing AB's little piggy bank, saving a few pennies here and there, and you're probably banking on maybe getting a bit of money for someone like Sadio Mane, who's probably getting on a bit.
No, that is quite true, gents. I think this is time we close out this section of the podcast. We've spoken about the top four. You do let us know what you guys think. You know, if
I wouldn't say top four, Paul, because if you look at the fourth position, Spurs is there right now. So let's
whoa. Last year's top four, you were nowhere near that. Go figure out Paco de Ferreira first before we start adding you here. But yeah, just let us know what you guys think, and then we'll be back again for tomorrow for the next segment of the show, which is the other teams, also known as Dean's team and my team and whoever else wants to fill that group. But thank you very much. Remember, like, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube. Thank you very much. Have a nice day, and le sale cacajizo.